Hello and welcome to the 5 p.m. lockdown beers and rugby chat. Yes, we are still going, coming to you at 5 p.m. every single day, talking about. So give me a way to wind down at the end of the day. We missed the weekend, folks, because of basically rugby games that I was at. But we're back again, and we'll be here every day this week for you. And joining me today, I've got Boa. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you. Out of beer, unfortunately, today I have to run to the bottle shop. So maybe I'll have a virtual beer make-believe one. Well, thank you. I hope everyone else is well as well watching this. And, particularly for us Aucklanders still in level 3, I hope everyone is safe.
And following the rules. And I've got, 5 seconds until I can open my beer. Because obviously, if we kicked off before 5 a.m., we'd be kicking off probably at 9 o'clock in the morning and just keep going, which would be a bit silly. So there we go. Into the old glass.
Well, I have to say that sounds very satisfying from the crack open to that pour. Far from a perfect pour, I have to point out, but it sounds so satisfying. It literally smells like victory. I wish I could taste it.
It's done purely for the podcast that way. So people don't forget you can either watch us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, or you can catch the podcast as well, where you get that those wonderful sound effects straight into your ears via your headphones, and hopefully it doesn't make you salivate too much. Also joining us is Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Paul. I hope you're well. Bart, good to see you, buddy.
Likewise, Mr. Harris. Very well, thank you.
Evening to Simon on the old YouTube. So, folks, unfortunately, Twitter has changed how it works. So, unfortunately, you can't put live comments to us on Twitter. If you're watching on Twitter and would like to comment, then just whack a reply tweet, and I'll pick it up because I'm keeping an eye on it. But they don't allow comments anymore on Twitter, but you do on Facebook and YouTube. So that's all good. As Stephen Harris puts down his bells, which is nice to hear. That was going on. So let's just catch up on some of the rugby that happened at the weekend. So we had the Farah Palmer Cup at the weekend with 3 games in the final round of the regular season. There, Taranaki lost to Hawke's Bay 19-35. A bit of a tough season for Taranaki, and I'm guessing they have probably got some similar problems to men around availability of players, because some of their players were caught in Auckland under lockdown still, etc. So yes, we've got a good win by Hawke's Bay there. Tasman, unsurprisingly, beaten by Manawatu Cyclones 7-85. Ouch! That was a big loss there. But Manawatu Cyclones look on track to aiming to get promotion, whereas Tasman, let's be honest, still a newish program themselves, and themselves and Taranaki, the 2 weakest programs probably in the Farah Palmer Cup currently. I was then at Bay of Plenty versus Wellington, which is a cracking game. Wellington came out on top of that one, 34-41. Important game for Wellington because that means they had to win that game to get themselves into the semi-finals, which we'll get onto in a second. Otago Spirit, unsurprisingly, beaten by Canterbury 24-72. So Otago looking like they are going to be relegated this season, and it's the first time that we've had relegation in the Farah Palmer Cup ever, I think. So, Boa and Stephen, did you catch much of? What are your thoughts on the Farah Palmer Cup this year?
Well, this weekend, I must admit, I caught a bit of the highlights, and I actually watched a couple of interviews, particularly the Wellington game, and sounded like it was a bit of a humdinger. One thing I have to say is that particular result for the Cyclones was, it was a cyclonic blowout, quite literally. With the teams, particularly in the Farah Palmer Cup and women's development side of rugby, I think the union needs to be a little bit more proactive here, and particularly with some of the newer teams who come into the competition. There's got to be some kind of system where they're given a bit of a chance, i.e., some kind of a handicap where perhaps teams like Manawatu are actually forced to field not probably their best side, because having a scoreline of 85 points to 7 is not going to help anyone, and particularly in a game and a league where they're trying to build this whole professional tier, it's not good. So I know a lot of people aren't a fan of what I've proposed. I've openly spoken about this with NZR, but I think it's the union's duty to look after some of the interests of some of these teams who've just sort of come into the competition. But apart from that, the top teams, they seem to be going hammer and tong, high-scoring affairs. They play more rugby than some test teams I happen to know. They don't have long breaks, which we'll talk about later.
Yep.
But look, exciting stuff. I just think we need to look after some of the new entrants into the competition.
Look, I think it's still early days with the Farah. Obviously, the Farah Palmer Cup's been around for a while, but with its expansion, it's still early days for some of these teams. They are taking time to put in and the structures underneath these teams that you need, like all the club teams, etc. So you've got enough players to select from. I think I remember talking to the Manawatu coach and basically saying that they basically had a pool of about 50 odd players to pick from across their entire union, which is a lot of this. LB are more crying about the box typical. We've not even talked about the box yet. We're just talking about Farah Palmer Cup. Jeez, wow. Interest. God, dear me, chip on the shoulder there, mate. But Aaron's definitely getting in there with those comments about Ubers. So I think there's a lot of work, and whilst there's been a lot of positivity around this in the media, one of the coaches off the record told me that actually part of the what's the word I'm looking for? Part of the there are still some problems at club level about having enough players really to support this, and perhaps everything's not quite as rosy as they would like to say. But yes, it is. It is a problem really. But it's just going to take time, I think, to grow these things. So next weekend we have the semi-finals time. So 3 fixtures next weekend. On the Friday night, we will have Northland versus Hawke's Bay in the championship semi-final to see who will face Manawatu in the final. Then on Saturday we've got Waikato versus Wellington to see who will face Canterbury in the final, and then Manawatu and Canterbury are having a non-competitive match because, basically they just need the rugby after. Waikato hasn't had a game since lockdown has come out, or competitive game. They had a warm-up 2 weekends ago against Wellington because neither Waikato or Wellington had games because they were playing against Auckland-based teams. It's all been COVID's just all made it a little bit of a mess on this one. But Bo, you say that look, short turnaround, a Sunday to a Saturday game for the Wellington game was from Saturday. Yeah, but Northland, Sunday to Friday. Yeah, short turnaround for them in that one.
Yeah, it is, and you have to understand some of these girls actually have day jobs as well. So it's a lot of pressure. I understand that obviously there'll be TV pressure on the unions and the teams to get this in order. But look, the reality is if we are going to grow this game, then we got to try and give these teams as much assistance and a bit of a leg up as much as possible. So there's been a few murmurs here and there where some of the coaching staff has said, look, it's a bit of a short turnaround. But look, all in all, once it comes to game day, they'll turn up and do their jam. But I think we have to be fair to them. And, if it's going to be put on television and there's a certain expectation that this is going to deliver at a level of rugby and intensity where people are paying to watch it, then I think we have to be fair to them so that we give them the best possible chance of preparation. So that's probably where things are at.
Yep. On that one, so that's the Farah Palmer Cup and what's been going on there, folks. Now I have got a decision to make. Do I go along to Waikato versus Wellington at FMG Stadium, or do I head down to Rotorua next Saturday for Bay of Plenty versus? I've gone blank as to who they're playing next weekend. Bay of Plenty game in against Wellington again in Rotorua at 2 p.m. unfortunately, I don't have a teleporter to jump between the two, so that's my decision to make on that one. Stephen, you've got some thoughts?
Yeah, Paul, I just want to quickly go back to the round. I'll tell you what, the piece of action from the round that I absolutely enjoyed the most was the try scored in the Wellington game. Now, I think she got 2 tries. That was Aisha Leti-Liaga, who scored an absolute brilliant try where I think she received the ball just in her own half, went inside a player, and then absolutely stood the fullback with what they called the old washing machine, where she basically went inside and then outside, just stood the last marker up. But I know it's a try that's doing the rounds on Twitter. I know Nigel Yeldon has posted something on his Twitter handle. So, gee, by all means, have a look at that. But there's another interesting bit of action as well. One of the players that Leti Liaga left in her wake basically falls on the ground, and of course the referee who's trailing the play does a great job of jumping over that player on the ground. So there's a couple of great bits of action in that game. I was going to say, if I could get to a game this weekend, it would be that Manawatu Cyclones versus Canterbury game. That's good to me, is going to be a very interesting game, because this Cyclones team is a very, very well-drilled, well-coached team. And from what I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but Kendra Coxedge may not be available for Canterbury this weekend. She might be on Black Ferns duty. I'm not 100% on that one, but if that's the case, boy, that's a real leveler, because she's a real big part of that Canterbury team.
Yeah, no, she is. And you're right. There are a number of players who will not be available for these semi-finals and potentially finals as well, because of the Black Ferns. I'm just putting in the live chat, everybody, my link to the interview with Aisha that I had after the game. Who scored that try that Stephen was talking about. I called her after the game for a quick chat. Say she's heading off to Blackfern duty herself, and is in cracking form with a couple of those tries. That's again, sorry folks on Twitter, but if you look at my you look at the replies to the Black Ferns post, you'll find my interview with her as well. So she was good enough to have a chat with me after that, and I forgot. And she actually says during that interview that she might not be available for the Waikato versus Wellington game because of the Black Ferns requirements. She was on limited minutes and therefore came on after 20 minutes to play. So she was only allowed to play 60 minutes in this game. So it's some interesting interference. I don't know what the right word is, or clash of priorities, unfortunately, with the Black Ferns and the Farah Palmer Cup. Moving on then to the Bunnings NPC, cracking win on Friday night by Waikato, who travelled down to Tasman to win 22-39. Very impressed with that game. Manawatu continuing their good form with a win, 31-19 win over Northland. Southland putting up a cracking fight against Canterbury, 16-19. Going on into Sunday then, Wellington down by Hawke's Bay, 28-31. So no Ranfurly Shield hangover for Hawke's Bay, which is a bit of a surprise there. And then a real upset, Bay of Plenty 28, Taranaki 55 in that one. Really off the back of some very good defence in the first half, where Bay of Plenty had lots of territory in possession, but didn't get any points, or didn't get as many points as they should have done. And then in the second half, Taranaki really ran away with it in that one. But your thoughts from the games at the weekend, you, Stephen?
Yeah, listen, probably for me, the two real impressive wins of the weekend were that Waikato win on Friday night, and of course Taranaki, who were expected to face a stiff challenge against Bay of Plenty. I thought those two wins were really, really impressive, and I also thought Southland really, really unlucky not to have taken that in the 80 minutes. I had a chat to Dale McLeod just after lunch, just gave him a call. He said, listen, he probably would have backed Marty Banks to have kicked goal every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Wasn't to be. It was quite a howling southerly that basically came through later in the day, so it wasn't comfortable for goal kickers by any stretch down there. He was just a little frustrated that just with the golden point aspect, he said, listen, at the end of the day, it came down to the team who won the toss was going to have that big breeze behind them, and he said it was pretty much sold after that because it was just really a case of teams playing, well, the team with the win playing force back, forcing a mistake, and that's what it came down to. He offered up a solution to me, which I thought was great. I think he's also mentioned it in the media. How about at the end of 80 minutes, both teams share the 2 points for the draw, and if you go into extra time, the winning team just picks up an extra 2 points for the win. You know, it's simple as that. Or else, if they score 4 tries, picks up that 3 points. At least the losing team deservedly walks away with something. I can't say I'm a fan of the golden point. I think it's something that should maybe be left for a semi-final or a final, you know, if you want to find an eventual winner. But yeah, those are the things that impressed me. Of course, Manawatu, far too strong for Northern, but I kind of expected that with the Taniwha's injury toll. But once again, this level of rugby has just got a great way of spitting players out again. And it's remiss of me not to also mention Hawke's Bay as well. I think we all expected a hangover, but boy, I think they just showed what a really smart, well-coached team they are. You know, whenever they might be in a little bit of trouble, they go back to their meat and drink, which is their forward pack, and they do it ever so well. They are so well drilled. And listen, big ups to their 2 front rowers, Rakete Stones, and of course, Namatahi Wā, who wasn't wanted by Northland, always had a lot of talent, was in the Blues development squad. Hey, he moves to a completely different province, and under the guidance of a very good scrum coach, Francisco, who we've had on NZ Sport Radio before, just develops his game big time. Fantastic to see.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, I'll just bring up the video about Western Force because someone else talking about that in the live chat. Look, some cracking rugby, and as you say, that lack of hangover was great. Bo, your thoughts on the weekend's action?
Well, again, another profitable weekend of rugby. If you followed my tips last week, I did tip Hawke's Bay and Taranaki. I didn't actually expect Taranaki to come up with such a big win. But again, guys, I when I analyze things, I look at the form line and the critical. It's what you call the basic pillars of rugby. How well are their forwards carrying? How well are they recycling possession? And how well are they willing to use their strengths? So if you look particularly with the with the Taranaki side, they're willing to give it air and move it to the edge. That's where their strength is, and they're actually throwing quality passes where the outside backs have to actually catch it in front and run onto the ball. That's the difference between the good and the average sides, and they're consistently doing it. So these are telltale signs that they've been working on the right skills, they've been coached well, and they have a game plan. And if you see, most of their tries were end-to-end. Same with Hawke's Bay. As you rightly pointed out, it's the front rows. They carry well, they secure the ball, they recycle quickly, and these are the fundamental pillars of rugby, and particularly at NPC level. If you want to get consistent wins and build up a form line, that's what you need to do. So really happy for those two. I didn't expect Tasman to cough up in the way they did against Waikato, but I have to say the Moolus played some outstanding rugby. And of course, there's been a bit of chatter about Shannon Frizzell. Yeah, his form line is pretty patchy. He did have a couple of pretty telling knock-ons or unforced errors when he went into contact. And of course, the tackle he missed on the cover as the scrum was wheeling towards the right-hand side, he just let the Waikato halfback run straight through. So, it was a bit concerning, a player of his stature. But I have to say, Lester Fainganuku, what an outstanding game. He was the one player from Tasman who kept trying right till the end. And I have to say, very, very surprised that, everything they did just came unstuck. But overall, great weekend. Keep following my tips. You got the double. It was a very profitable one. And let's see if we can pick something this weekend as well.
So, yeah, I think with Shannon Frizzell, we've seen with Aaron Smith that after toilet gate. Look, his form dropped for about a year as he got, and it was quite clear that stuff off the pitch was impacting his game on the pitch. Shannon Frizzell, clearly, look, he's got stuff going on off the pitch. And as much as people say, oh, look, it's been put to bed, he wasn't found convicted. He's still having to sort things out off the pitch. Clear, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he is a bit patchy towards the end of the season. And I think, in all honesty, I don't think his form on the pitch really matters. To me, it's about getting his life off the pitch in the right order so he can start next season well. Is my mind. So if anything, I think I'd have pulled him off the pitch. Yes, he kept trying, but I think I'd have substituted and said, look, here's some things we need to sort of think about for next time. But hey, it is what it is. Joshua points out that that Fijian winger for Bay of Plenty, which what he means is Ratavai, who has got a contract with the Fijian Drua, which is fantastic to see. He didn't get as much time as he did on the ball as he did against Hawke's Bay. But when you think that Sean Wainui had to pull out before game day, Joe Webber injured himself during the warm-ups. So that's two players that they lost that were expecting to have during the game. They lost Caleb Trask. They also lost Inga Finau to injury, and Ratavai also pulled up with a hamstring as well. And another player was hobbling in that back line. So it looks like Narawaya, sorry. So they came up to 6 first choice or outside backs, or pretty much all their first choice outside backs, except for Chase Tiatia, basically injured. Bay of Plenty having a serious injury issue at the moment. They always say, look, we can't use that as an excuse, but I mean, Stephen, as you've pointed out with Northern with 16 players injured, these aren't Super Rugby squads. They're a lot thinner than that, and they just can't cope. They can't carry that level of injuries. Unfortunately.
I was going to agree. They also introduced, I think there were a couple of young guys off the bench making their debuts. So, what a cauldron to actually come into. But I've got to give them a bit of credit. They could have rolled over, but they didn't. And they at the end of the day, they probably got pretty close to maybe securing, if they hadn't given that last try away and scored a try themselves, that was the difference between securing maybe 2 bonus points. So they held in there, and it's really great to see some young guys. And you can see the young guys that are standing up at this level. Back to Friday night's game, you had Gideon Rampling, who, he looks a player of immense quality. I know in our rugby chat, I mentioned it pretty early because I'd seen him play before, so I was quite excited about seeing him at second 5. And also George Dyer, wow, 21 years old and captaining his provincial side, and what a talent. Fantastic to see just on the Bay of Plenty Steamers. And it's something that I have heard there is a little bit of trouble at Mill. Of course, Daryl Gibson coaching the team at the moment. The word I'm basically hearing, it doesn't always, not always transparent with the players, and that's just a bit of stuff that I'm hearing through the grapevine at the moment. If that's the case, it's very disappointing because, as we know, Bay of Plenty went to market, which should have strengthened their side, and there's still some really good players on the field. But I guess if things are happening away from the field, then you have got some issues.
Hey, look, Aidan Ross in my post-match all my post-match interviews available on New Zealand Sport on Facebook.com/NZ Sport Radio on our Facebook page. But I had a chat with Aidan Ross after the game, and he was seriously upset. He was not happy at all. Now that was pretty quick after the game, and it was a bit of a while later that I actually talked to Gibson. Now, we all know that I try and keep my post-match interviews as positive as possible. Doesn't matter how bad the game has been. I'm not there to beat up a person after they had a bad game. So I was talking a lot about injuries and stuff. But yeah, he came across not upset, basically, by that game, which and with that kind of scoreline, you kind of think it's you expect them to be hurting a bit more than that, I guess. So interesting one there. Look, it's great to have his time, and I say I deliberately move the interview into a positive direction. So there is that element as well. So look, it's I'm not trying to get him crying or anything or upset. That's not what I try and do. I'm trying to grow the game. So yeah, but interesting comments there, Stephen, about what might be going on. Nothing that I've heard, but interesting.
Yeah.
Moving on then, we had Women's Rugby World Cup qualifiers. Just very quickly on this one. This is the over in Europe, and we had Italy versus Spain. Italy beat Spain 34-10 to go top of that table with their bonus point, and they have automatically qualified to the Women's Rugby World Cup here in New Zealand next year. So congratulations to Italy. Ireland lost to Scotland 18-20. That meant Scotland finished second in the table on 9 points, and that means they will be going to the repechage in the qualification. So just to keep you up to speed, folks, with how the Women's Rugby World Cup qualification is going. I didn't see any of those games. I've not really got anything else I can say about that. Anything? I don't know if either of you guys saw anything or have any comments on that area.
I did. I mean, I'm a bit of a rugby nerd, so I did catch a little bit from the Ireland-Scotland game, and I have to say, very surprised Ireland lost, and they look super dejected, and I feel for them. But it's good to see the women's game moving forward, because obviously the World Cup was supposed to happen like now this year, but because COVID, it's been shuffled back. So that's good to see, and of course, be interesting to see what the repechage holds as well. But, there's not a great deal of interest at this stage with some of these games, because there's hardly anyone watching. So, but all in all, good to see the women's game moving forward.
Yeah, look, I mean, Ireland, there's been a lot of fallout from this, particularly on social media amongst people who follow women's rugby, obviously, because, look, Ireland were finalists about 2 or 3 Rugby World Cup, a couple of Rugby World Cups ago. They've won women's rugby, Six Nations, and their position in world rugby has slid quite dramatically when you think their men's team has been going really well. So some real question marks around their investment and their structures, and how much the Irish Rugby Union has basically dropped the ball on this one, and not done what, as Simon Hughes says, disputes around the structure of the women's game over in Ireland there. So, for example, in the AIL, which is the sort of the Irish league, that's for the men is beneath the UFC, URC, United, whatever it is, Rugby Championship. In that one, at the top level of women's rugby, that you're expected to provide your own assistant referees, but you're not in any of the men's leagues, and things like that are causing a lot of frustration. And if you think, look at our Farah Palmer Cup, we have New Zealand rugby referees, not provincial referees. So look, that's we're taking much more seriously here than they have done there. So the other big thing at the weekend, a couple of things. Just a quick couple of news items before we get to the last one. Do you see that the Rugby Championship, they had a captain's photo call that included Sia Khaleesi, Ardy Surveyor, and Hooper, which obviously is the only 3 captains in the Rugby Championship, and totally ignored the Argentinian one. Now, apparently he wasn't there because their flights got delayed, but then you just don't have the photo call. New Zealand Rugby and Australia and Rugby Australia got a big debt to pay, or big debt to Argentina. They turned up for the Rugby Championship last year. They've turned up again this year under not easy circumstances. They could very easily have cited player welfare and all this kind of stuff and not turned up, right? But they've turned up, and I think holding a photo call like that is so disrespectful and doesn't show Argentina the love that we should be showing them, in my opinion.
Paul, it's the old adage of what's that saying? If you can't do something well, don't do it at all. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, because that just really looks random, regardless of, and of course Argentina had a viable excuse not to be there, so just don't do it at all.
Yeah, poor form, terrible. I mean, look, Sansa, they talk about helping each other and want to, set high standards for themselves. It's shocking. It is just downright disrespectful. And I actually felt really sorry for Mario Ledesma when he actually came out and said, "Look, I actually felt that we were disrespected. And that's exactly what happened." And it feels like watching that movie Home Alone. That kid gets left behind and everyone goes on holiday and has a great time. So it's terrible. It is just terrible form. And look, Steven, I'm with you. If you're going to do something, do it right. And, it's a real slap in the face of Argentina. What has it been, 29 months away from home?
Yeah.
If not for the Pumas, we wouldn't have had any rugby last year, proper rugby. So I think, come on, let's give these guys a little bit of due respect. And they don't ask for much. And, if you can't do the damn thing, well, then don't do it at all. It's just, I mean, look, I'm not going to say anymore. It's just downright disrespectful. And I think a big apology is owed to the Pumas.
Look, as you say, they don't complain, right? They turn up. They're thankful for being included, and the way they've been treated is wrong. There's reports that Australia are going to do what I think Stephen, you've been talking about. They should be doing for ages. They're going to include Will Skelton, Rory Arnold, and Tolu Latu on their November part of their tour, using their expat players. Rory Arnold and Will Skelton, boy, that's some reinforcements.
Oh, absolutely, and size, real size. Like I say, I actually believe the Wallaby locks that they've got currently have done a fair job, but they're kind of like a smaller version international size locks who are adequate in my opinion. But the likes of Arnold especially, he's very good on opposition ball. He'll add even more power and size to their second row at scrum time. It's a win-win situation for Dave Rennie. They are trending in the right direction, but more importantly, building depth, building some really good quality depth. And in the space of a year, all of a sudden they've got three to five players on the world class platform at the minute. You look at somebody like Samu Karevi. I made a comment in our chat room on Saturday night. Is he currently the best second five in the world at this very minute? Crazy when you consider he was only been called in the last sort of couple of months or so.
Yep, where he's come from, from Japanese rugby in sevens, and suddenly, wow, to be in that kind of conversation is very good. Any extra thoughts, Bo, or should we move on to the actual games from the weekend briefly?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, talking to some of my colleagues involved in provincial and club rugby in Australia, they're actually quite divided with this whole situation. It's called taking on the Matt Gatto sort of clause, so to speak. I think my personal view is that, this is the right thing for Australia to do because, they need to build the depth and they don't have the same luxury as, say, the All Blacks do. But at the same time, that's probably going to cut some of the chances of the homegrown talent, which is what some of the diehard local rugby critics are taking aim at. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how things go on. But I have to say, Will Skelton, one of the most improved players, he's shed a lot of weight and he's in pretty good form. So, exciting times. And I think this year's end tour, we can actually see, particularly the Wallabies and the All Blacks, really putting a case forward on how to build depth and dominate from the front. So exciting times for the Wallabies, and rightly said, Stephen, I know you're a massive fan of the Wallabies and they're trending in the right direction. It's what we call a R=+1 curve. So long way to continue.
Now, folks, we've come up to the half hour, which is why I like to keep this too. Now, boys, are we okay if we keep time wasting and stoppages as the big topic for the Driving Moors show tomorrow night? So, folks, there we go. So, so tomorrow night, obviously at 8 p.m, we have the Driving Moors show. We'll be looking back at for the Rugby Championship. I did post-match reviews or post-match reactions to both of the games. So we won't go through the games in detail. If you want to check out that. Go back and listen or watch to those available as a podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. For those things, what we will do is we will talk about the elephant in the room, which is that around the time wasting and stoppages that we've had within games. All teams do it to a greater or lesser degree. Clearly, it is something that the Springboks are currently doing being the focus of attention is on them. But it's not just them that do it; other people do as well. So we'll be talking about that. It won't just be a pure Springboks bashing, or I hope not. I'm here to adjudicate that and keep it away from that. And it'll be more about we'll talk about how can it be fixed more than anything else properly. We'll also look forward to the second game between the All Blacks and the Springboks. Have a pick of who we think will be starting for the All Blacks. Will there be rotation? Will there not be? We'll also look forward to that Australia versus Argentina game with obviously the disrespected Argentinian team will be coming off the we'll have plenty of emotion going into those games. So we'll talk about those as well. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Boa. Please both stay safe in 09. Look, we appreciate everything is happening up there in Auckland, and you abiding by the rules. Hopefully we'll have you down to level 2 soon. The only downside to that is that we'll probably stop the lockdown beers and rugby chat once you get to level 2. But other than that, have a great day, stay safe, and thank you, boys.